Yay! This is Thursday on the AM show. I'm happy because it's my day. If you are Yao, Yawa, Ya, wherever you are, well, we celebrate you today. It is your day as well. You know how we do it on the AM show. We welcome you aboard over 4 hours, giving you delectable morning television. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. It's a pleasure to host you this morning on the show. Now, coming up shortly, the news, and right after that, you know how we do it. The news review, and we'll be welcoming the NDC's parliamentary candidate-elect for South Tone, Maxwell Lukuto. He is our guest. That will quickly be followed by sports with Mubarak Haruna. And then we get into our big stories. Now today, we continue the conversation on government's intention to ban or restrict, whichever way you want to look at it, the import of certain products. We'll be hearing from the ranking member on Parliament's Trade Committee, Yusuf Sulemana. He will be expatiating on some of the pertinent matters as far as that is concerned. He is also the Member of Parliament for Bole Bamboy. Again, there are some changes in Parliament in respect of leadership of the various committees. There's been a bit of a shuffle. We'll be telling you about that on the show today on That Bell. But talking education now. Some people still have issues with the computerized school selection and placement system. We know it popularly as the CSSPS. Still, there are students who have not got placements, students who are stranded. But what is the way forward? We'll be getting to that conversation as well right here on the AM show. As always, we'd love to hear from you. So share your thoughts with us in the course of the show from now all the way to the end. Let's do this for God and country. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. Stay with me for the news up next. Thank you so much for staying. Let's get into the AM news now. In our first story, the Food and Drugs Authority has declared a nationwide crackdown on unauthorized advertisements proliferating on social media. This comes on the heels of findings from 2 FDA studies released at the end of a 3-day stakeholders engagement in Accra. The report highlights an uptick in non-communicable diseases in Ghana attributed to the increased consumption of fizzy drinks fueled by these unauthorized ads. Carlos Caloni has the rest of the story. We'll bring you details of that story later in the news. But in our next story, the United Nations Under-Secretary General for Peacekeeping, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, has asked Ghana to continually be a shining example in its contribution of troops for peacekeeping over the years. Speaking exclusively to Joy News during the UN Peacekeeping Ministerial in Accra, Jean-Pierre Lacroix praised Ghana for its deliberate gender inclusivity in its troops and promotions as well.
Live from the Accra International Conference Center, this is the Joy News channel, and we have a rare opportunity to interact with the Under-Secretary General in charge of peacekeeping, Jean-Pierre Lacroix. He's our guest. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Joy News channel.
Very good to be with you.
How has Ghana been for you so far, you'd say?
So far, so good. We've had an excellent welcome and a wonderful organization, so very, very pleased to be here.
Okay, well, we'll get straight into action. I would want to find out from where you sit, how do you think Ghana has fared in terms of our peacekeeping operations over the period, in terms of what we've contributed amongst others, you'd say?
Ghana is one of the most important supporters. It's a very important troop and police contributing country to peacekeeping. We have approximately 2,700 men and women from Ghana serving in most of the peacekeeping operation that we have, and their service is outstanding, and therefore it's very fitting that we're having the first ministerial level meeting on peacekeeping in Africa in Ghana.
Well, let's talk about collaborations going forward, how the UN is hoping to collaborate more with the local communities amongst others. Where are we with that, and where would you want to be going forward?
I think it's very important to make sure that we engage, and our peacekeepers, the civilian, the military and the police engage very closely with the local communities for one very simple reason. First of all, in crisis settings, they are by definition, the most affected component, the men and women and children from the local communities. They're the ones who bear the brunt of the crisis. But in addition to that, you cannot build sustainable peace without engaging with the local community. That's why our peacekeepers are making tremendous efforts to make sure that the communities are on board and they're supportive and understanding of all the efforts that our peacekeepers are making.
It brings me to the issue about hurdles and challenges that the UN faces as we speak. From where you sit, what would it be and what we are hoping to do differently, you'd say?
I think of course, before talking about the challenge, it's very important to talk about the achievements of our peacekeepers, because if it weren't for them, then ceasefires wouldn't be monitored, resumption of hostilities would not be prevented, and we should not forget that every single day our peacekeepers, including the peacekeepers from Ghana, are protecting the lives of hundreds of millions of civilians. But we have challenges. The first one is a political challenge, because we have an international community that is much more divided than it was 10 or 20 years ago. But we're also facing challenges because of the fact that conflicts have changed and the threats are becoming even more daunting to our peacekeepers. Armed groups, new technologies, fake news and disinformation. We need to adapt to all these threats.
Okay, it takes me to the issue about gender inclusivity, because most of the time I am female, so I'm excited to talk about that. Let's talk about the initiatives to enhance more gender inclusivity when it comes to UN peacekeeping.
I think the first thing that needs to be said is Ghana is very much a pioneer in terms of having more women in peacekeeping, including more women at senior ranks in the military and the police. That is very important. And in my interaction with the Minister of Defense, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I encourage Ghana to continue this effort and also to come up with more female candidates for senior position. When we have more women in peacekeeping, we have a more effective peacekeeping. That's the motto, really. But the role of peacekeeping is not only to increase the number of women in the military, the police, the civilian. It is also to do more to empower women in the countries where peacekeeping operations are deployed, to make sure that women will have a voice in political efforts and peace efforts.
Well, the issue about sexual exploitation, and I must add that there's a woman behind you, so it actually talks about the issue about gender inclusivity. But let's talk about the issue about sexual abuses and exploitation when it comes to UN peacekeeping. I'm sure there are some measures in place to curb that, amongst others. You'd like to touch a bit more on that?
Indeed. I mean, what needs to be said is sexual exploitation, abuse by peacekeepers is intolerable. It's only a very small minority, and by doing these unspeakable things, then they cast a stain, they undermine the work of the great majority of our peacekeepers. So we've taken a number of measures, and I believe that we're more equipped to prevent and react to cases of sexual exploitation and abuse. We've been taking very robust measures when we are faced with such cases, including repatriating entire contingents and taking other measures so that victims can be better supported. That is very important.
I know how pressed you are, but the issue lastly about partnerships with local communities, the issue about these stakeholders and the organizations, how they complement the work of the UN peacekeeping, you'd say?
Yeah, peacekeeping is about partnership. Peacekeeping is there to support progress towards peace, towards sustainable and durable political solution, but we need partners to do that, because the peacekeepers cannot do everything by themselves. First of all, we need to partner with member states, and we need stronger political support from them to political efforts. But we work also with humanitarian agencies, with NGOs, with, of course, the civil society, with regional, sub-regional organizations such as the African Union and ECOWAS. And it's only with the strong partnership that we can succeed. The partnership is absolutely key to the success of peacekeeping.
And finally, maybe the success stories. Of course, we can't talk to you without talking about the success stories of your mission, for instance. What would you say will be the success stories, and going forward, certain programs that we're hoping to initiate?
Well, I think the list is very long, first of all, of success stories of countries that have been, that have returned to stability, political stability, with the help of peacekeeping. It ranges from Liberia, Sierra Leone, Côte d'Ivoire, Angola, Mozambique, Namibia, and other countries in other continents.
Now, authorities and students of the St. Francis Xavier Minor Seminary in the Wa municipality of the Upper West region are heaving a sigh of relief following the handing over of a clinic to the school by the school's Parent Teachers Association. Rafiq Salam was at the handing over ceremony and came through with this report.
According to the Parent Teacher Association chairman of the St. Francis Xavier Minor Seminary, Lawyer Spiritus Ongo, the idea to construct the over 200,000 Ghana cedis clinic came out during the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic when some students of the school contracted the deadly disease.
You all recall that during the COVID-19, a number of our students were hit by this disease, and usually they were taken to the hospital by the Reverend Fathers. It exposed them a lot to the disease, and it made things very difficult for them. And anytime they were even discharged, they were isolated in the dormitories. They just got part of the dormitory and put affected students in there. So realized that we needed to improve on the system by putting this edifice here, so that at least the first point of call will be this clinic.
The handing over of the project to the school comes ahead of the 60th anniversary celebration of the school slated for Saturday. Now that the project is handed over to the school, Executive Director of the World Diocese and Health Services, Reverend Sister Juliana Akete, is already looking into the future to grade up the clinic into a polyclinic or health center that can provide all-round service to the school and the public.
We would need a medical officer for a start to qualify as a polyclinic. Then we have, as a polyclinic, you can have provision for women who are in need. Then if we get a pediatric nurse too, that will be fine. But for our case now, for the students, we will need general nurses. If we have 3 nurses, we already have 2 general nurses here who are working. And then we have a specialist eye nurse who will take care of the eye issues. And not only the students, will give priority to the students and then the staff, but then anybody who comes in here can also be cared for.
The clinic for now is yet to be equipped with their appealing to all boys of the school and benevolent organizations to come to their aid. While they wait for the appeal to come into fruition, they will rely on equipment that were used at the old clinic for the time being.
Now, Northern Regional Director of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Abdullahi Abukari, is worried about the low acceptor rate of family planning in the Northern region. He wants stakeholders to get involved to educate residents on family planning. Martina Bugri reports.
The Northern Regional Director of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Abdullahi Abukari, raised his concern at a stakeholder engagement on Ghana's Family Planning 2023 Commitment Dissemination meeting in Tamale. He said the acceptor rate was further dipped at the district level, with some districts recording as low as 10%.
According to the latest data from the Ghana Health Service, the family planning acceptance rate in Ghana currently stands somewhere around 33.2%, whilst in the Northern region we are moving around 25.7%. And it is sad to know that some of our districts are performing as low as 10%. Similarly, ladies and gentlemen, according to the Ghana Demographic Health Survey, modern contraceptive prevalence rate in Ghana stands somewhere around 28% and 23.4% for Northern region. The Northern region also has a high unmet need for contraception in the country and stands at 22.3% according to the 2022 Ghana Demographic and Health Survey report. What this means is that there are many women and girls who want to avoid or delay pregnancy, but they are not using any form of modern methods of family. This situation is unacceptable and requires urgent action from all of us present here.
Deputy Director, Public Health Northern Region, Dr. Hilario Sabu, in an interview said even though the National Health Insurance Scheme was challenged with funding, there was the need for advocacy for the inclusion of family planning on the scheme.
Right, absolutely anything that makes these services available at no cost to the population is welcomed by the health service. Whilst doing that, we are also conscious of the fact that even in the current state, the health insurance has issues around funding in terms of paying for existing services that are already on the scheme. Okay, so that is part of the essence of this engagement, to advocate for government to make more commitment financially towards the provision of family planning services. So if government makes more financial commitment towards the NHI, to make it carry on extra burdens, including the condoms, including the bills, and all these other services that people are advocating for, it is welcome news.
The National Family Planning Programs Manager, Dr. Claudia Diego, said Ghana had met some of its commitment on family planning.
The 2020, we assessed where we were in terms of those commitments. We realized that we had met it. Some of them were supposed to work more on them. Now, post 2020, we went ahead to make further commitments, and that is what we call FP 2030.
Let's go back now to that initial story. The Food and Drugs Authority has declared a nationwide crackdown on unauthorized advertisements proliferating on social media. These are the footages of that story.
The three-day stakeholder meeting organized by the Food and Drugs Authority in collaboration with UNICEF brought together over 100 stakeholders from the Ghana Health Service, World Health Organization, among others. The meeting discussed the findings of two reports, the potential effect of advertisement on non-communicable diseases, NCDs, and the nationwide code monitoring report. The engagement also included an overview of the Breastfeeding Promotion Regulation LI 1667, which borders on guidelines on labeling and advertising of infant formula. Speaking to the press on the sidelines, a Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the FDA's Food Division, Roderick J., revealed the growing link between the consumption of alcohol and fizzy drinks and the rise in non-communicable diseases in Ghana due to unauthorized advertising.
The monitoring that we did. For the one on advertisement, it came out that many people are drawn, to these adverts, through food. And particularly, it's very, very worrying in the area of alcohol, as well as also the area of sugary drinks. So these two really stood out, where some of this junk food that is sold, selling of fizzy drinks, which is sugar-based, going along with a lot of these kind of fast foods, in the end will deposit so much into you and contribute to what we call NCDs, non-communicable diseases. So they are diseases of lifestyle. And we see that if the sphere of advertisement is controlled better than what FDA is doing, it will help us. So we have now increased the scope to cover especially food that you will find on the plate.
Mr. J, however, warned that the FDA will crack down on such unapproved advertisement, including those on social media.
In these times that, with social media, people think they can stay in one jurisdiction and then come up with an advert and then, send it into the Ghanaian space. You should know that once your product is linked to it, the FDA will come after you. It is rather easier for companies to come over to the Food and Drugs Authority and then go through the necessary processes where the different corrections that have to be done will be done. And then they will have a sound advert.
Professor Richmond Aite from the School of Public Health at the University of Ghana explains the gaps that the LI 16676 seeks to fill in boosting breastfeeding in Ghana.
The LI, one of the key things it seeks to do is to create an environment that is friendly for mothers to be able to breastfeed. By it proscribes marketing of breast milk substitutes. So you shouldn't see in any place where they are advertising formula. If you see that, that's an anomaly as far as the law is concerned, and there are stiff punishments related to that. There is also the health service. The health service is not allowed to just be providing formula to children unless it is indicated.
Stakeholders believe the new LI 1667 will help tackle teething challenges on baby formula and unauthorized advertisement to a large extent. Carlos Galoni, Joy News.
Now, in our final Clean Ghana campaign for the year, the campaign team stopped at Okaikwe South, where squatters have turned the storm drain into their home. The mini township, supported by old wooden logs, houses about 200 people, including children. The Assembly has issued a warning to the squatters, indicating that it will forcefully evict them if they fail to relocate within 2 months. There's more in this report. Our apologies for not being able to bring you the footage on that, maybe at some other point within the show. But thank you for watching the AM News. Up next, we serve you the news review. Thank you very much for staying with us. Time now for us to get into the news review, and I'll be introducing my guest shortly. But right before that, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helping us bring you this segment as always. And of course, here's what they're offering you if you're a man. Prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, well, fertility screening for free. Here's where you can locate Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. Here in Accra, at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. Kumasi, Kronomwabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. The Stakradi Anaji State Tema Community 22. Techiman Hanswa and Siama in Zama. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. The end to chronic disease. But just the start of the news review, and guess who joins me? It's a Thursday morning. Yes, the NDC's parliamentary candidate-elect for South Pole, Maxwell Lukuto, is our guest. Good morning, Max.
Ben, how are you?
I'm well. How about you?
I'm doing good. It's been a long time.
It's been just about a week or two, hasn't it?
Yes, but it's been long. I miss you.
Well, good to know. I miss you too. Let's just quickly do this. So your people in South Tong, I just want to find out what the latest is after the spillage of the dam. Yes, in recent days, weeks, we've not spoken so aggressively about it. A lot has happened, but what is the current situation there?
Yeah, so we are grateful to God that gradually and eventually the flood has receded. We are back to our normal state. We are only counting our cost as to the number of homes.
Well, we seem to be struggling with a connection to Maxwell Lukuto.
To disinfect.
Max, if you can hear me, just go back by about
hello, are we good?
Yes, just go back by about some 10 seconds. I missed when you started talking about the current situation.
Yeah, so like I said, we are back to normal state. The water has receded. The destroyed farms, we are still trying to reconstruct them. Schools have reopened. Those schools that were closed have reopened. And then they managed to fumigate and disinfect somehow. The clinic has also resumed. I'm here to confirm whether the mortuary that was submerged has also been has also resumed work. But I can confirm that the electricity situation that was hampered during the heat of the moment has also been completely restored. And so the power fluctuations that we experienced has not been has also been restored. The only thing is that those who have been badly affected with their farms produced are counting their costs. We are still trying to see the food items that have been given to us that we have sent to them. We are still receiving some few, and so we still go back to give them. And then we are working out the situations, and we hope that very soon we'll bounce back to our normal state and get things done properly.
All right. Let's get into the papers now and find out what exactly they have to say. We'll start with the Daily Graphic, Maxwell. 3 tourist sites to receive facelift. Professor Abo advocates all-inclusive national development plan. Then we also have SHS Resolution Center resolves major complaints. But it's one of the issues we're looking at today because the CSSPS has still left some people outside the window of placement. Recommit to peacekeeping operations. UN urges member states. All of those stories are there. On the back page, Northern College of Science and Technology wins award in agriculture. No food crisis looming over Volta region despite floods. That's the story there. In fact, I'm going to start from there. Now, it has now been established that more than 6,000 hectares of cropped fields have been destroyed in the Volta region by the recent floods caused by the spillage from the Akosombo and Kpong dams. The crops wiped out included rice, 4,700 hectares, cassava, 2,500 hectares, tomato, 20 hectares, onion or shallots, 60.7 hectares, and pepper, 40 hectares. Put all of that together and you'd realize that, and these are staples. You're talking of rice, cassava, tomato, onion, shallots, pepper. All of these are things we use practically every day. The Volta Regional Director of Agriculture, William Jamepe, disclosed this at the just-ended 2023 Farmers' Day celebration in Ho last Friday. He revealed that more than 6,740 farmers had been displaced by the deluge, which claimed more than 50,000 tons of various crops. Out of the displaced farmers, Mr. Jamepe said 80% were male, and that notwithstanding, the Regional Director of Agriculture gave an assurance that there was no food crisis looming over the region. Is that what you know? Is that what you're seeing in your constituency, South Tong, Maxwell? Hello, Maxwell?
Yeah, Ben.
Did you get the question?
Yes, I did. So the situations are like I kept saying, a lot of people have lost their farmlands during this flood. It's good he's giving us the statistics. And I don't have the benefit of other information that the Ministry of Agriculture has, for which reason they can say that there will be food crisis or otherwise. And so I'll refrain from insisting that there will be. But the situation on ground is that people have lost their livelihood. I don't know what the ministry has in stock in terms of plan to restore these people to where they were. This is livelihood. These people will have to sort out their kids going to secondary school. They would have to make sure that they live the Christmas very well. They have to be assured that they can do other things that they would have normally done with this situation not jeopardized by the floods. And so, yes, generally, they may say that because of the figures and the data and science they have, it may not affect the national situation of food crisis. But I think that we should also be looking at the individuals who have been affected, so we think about what we can do to restore their personal situations to what it should have been. I think that should be the critical state for us. For me, at the point we engage an agro company, Fenagro, and then the thinking is that if we can help these people replow their farms, if we can get them with farm inputs like seeds and other things, so that there will be some kind of partnership between the farmers and the company, so that at the end of the day, they can have back some of the crops as payment for the support they are going to be giving. So for me, these are the angles we should be thinking of and driving the conversation towards. As for the national food crisis, the Tong enclave, and especially along the banks of the river, will just be a drop in the ocean. Yes, some other crops that have not been mentioned were also affected. Mangoes, coconut trees, and other things were also affected. And so they are not crops that we consume on daily basis, but the cassava, the corn, the rice, and other things. Even the rice itself, even though it's becoming a staple food in our community, we concentrate more on the rice, the maize, and then the cassava. And so, yes, it may not affect us in totality, but we may have to be thinking along this line of restoring the individual farmers who have been badly affected.
Let's look at some other stories. Northern College of Science and Technology wins award in agriculture, and the Northern College of Science and Technology was adjudged the best educational institution in agriculture at the 39th Annual Farmers' Day celebration in Yendi in the Northern region. For its prize, the school received a certificate, farm inputs, and safety gear, among other items. I'm also focusing on this story because yesterday in a conversation I had, it came up, and I made mention of the fact that, look, in terms of food self-sufficiency, if you look at where we find ourselves, importing so much into this country, the way forward may not be an abrupt, hey, we're not importing all of this anymore, because then how do you fill the gap? Last Friday, I broke it down for everybody in terms of what we produce in terms of poultry, for example, what we produce in terms of different food crops like rice. It's a drop in a bucket. If you look at Nigeria, how long it's taken them even to get halfway through what they would have wanted to do when it comes to rice production, then you see how far we really have to go. But then again, you look at something like the schools. Back when I was in school, there was a lot of farming going on. We were growing yam, maize, among so many things. We were basically taking care of a chunk of what we ate, we consume ourselves, even having enough at some point to sell. If we could replicate that in all our boarding institutions or senior high schools, maybe even adding the colleges of education or something of the sort, I feel it would really add to our food self-sufficiency in the country, especially on what has happened, on the back of what has happened in Akosombo. And again, I feel it would actually outdo planting for food and jobs, because planting for food and jobs has not yielded the results we would have wanted. But what is your thinking about that? Because I know you also went through the system where you were weeding and you were, I'm sure, I don't know whether your school had a school farm, but mine did, Bishop Herman. And we remember the days of disco weeding. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so yes, Bishop Herman, I was also in Bishop Herman for my sixth form. I was in Glasgow for my...
Bobu.
Yes. Maybe I'm your senior Bobu.
Oh, yes, you are.
Yeah, so Glasgow had a school farm. And then I remember every long vacation break, they would always give us a pork show. And then we always get a pig from the school farm where it would be killed. And then the meat used to prepare a sumptuous meal for us. So Glasgow is still doing well. They still have the school farm, but not to the scale we expect it to be. And the number of agri students we have are also not much. Then it wasn't only the agri students who were going to the farm, it was all the school. And so I must congratulate this Knowledge School of Technology and Science for a good job done. This is what our schools should be living. For instance, the University of Science and Technology that I attended, we have a lot of project works that are lying on the shelves that have not been practicalized. I think that there's always a lacuna between industry and these schools of technology and science, so that those projects that we have written and we should be practicalized. I remember my school, Glasgow, has recently won an Energy Commission award, where the students, I was with them, they have designed an equipment that they can attach to a tractor. It will plow, it will spray weedicides, and even seeds. There are 5 different things that this equipment would be doing. And I wasn't surprised that they won the national award for the Energy Commission. And so for me, let's go back to these places. There are a lot of people with knowledge on how we can mechanize our agriculture and make it sustainable. The Sogasco School, or Sogasco Secondary School, has over 300 acres of land on record. And so if we can go back to these schools and make sure that this land is put into proper use, we supply tractor to them, and then we do these things. Like you said, planting for food and job, which has become a talk show, would not be necessary. we can produce a lot of food stuff from these schools, feed the schools themselves, and also sell some to do most developmental projects that these schools need. And so for me, it is time we go back to these schools and help them develop. There are a lot we can do from these places instead of spending so much money on workshops, on projects that we do not see the reality on ground. And so, yes, let's go back and make sure we enhance some of these things that we are letting go. My thought is that we can still do it better if we go back to the basics. Yes, Bishop Emma, you remember every Saturday, they take all of us to the school farm, and when you come back, they give you a good breakfast. It's not a normal cockly or the normal cocoa. They give you beans, and it was good for us. So we can go back to these things and make a lot out of them. I agree with you.
Well, let's get into other stories right before we say goodbye to the Daily Graphic newspaper. Recommit to peacekeeping operations, UN urges member states. Now, the United Nations Under-Secretary General for Peace Operations, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, has urged member countries to recommit themselves politically to peacekeeping operations. He further called for the full support of member states to enable countries to reach lasting peace. Quoting him, he says, UN peacekeepers are saving countless lives for a relatively small investment. But for its mission to enable countries to reach a durable peace, the organization needs the full support of all member states. And that's what he has been saying. He also said he made the call at the opening of the UN peacekeeping ministerial meeting in Accra yesterday, saying they will help meet current and future challenges and needs, as well as new or expanded partnerships on capacity building, training, and equipping, he stated. There's also NATO member to be Sweden and the US sign defense deal, and Sierra Leone arrests ex-president's guard over failed coup. So I want to find out how you reconcile the two. Here we have Jean-Pierre Lacroix in the country talking about peacekeeping operations and what we can do to make them better, but you also see the spate of threats to the sub-region, coup d'etats, attempts at same happening, and you ask yourself, where do we reconcile? In terms of finding peace, how about also finding proper leadership, better governance that will even forestall some of these activities? What's your take on that?
Yeah, sure. So like we said, that is the 78th UN Day that was held in Ghana. And in attendance were all ministers of country states, and our vice president was also represented. Yes, of course, peace and development is the 16th goal of the 17 goals of the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. And so for me, it is key for us to be looking at peace. And yes, like you said, we'll just oppose this against what is happening in the sub-region. It is also because in the democracies that we say we practice, people say and do things counter to the tenets of democracy. You hear people saying that we'll never hand over power, or I will ensure that I hand over power to my own party MPP. And people allow those statements to go scot-free. You hear some people, apparatchiks of the government, saying things that do not mean that they believe strongly in the democracy that we are practicing. And it makes you raise eyebrow. Look at how beautiful it was done in Liberia, where the former president, the footballer, handed over to the former vice president of the country. It was so peaceful and was so nice. I didn't hear threats of ensuring that he wins the election at all costs. He knew it was a democratic process. They had to go for a runoff. They went through, he lost. He handed over, and it was so peaceful and so nice. But if you see the action and inaction of our leaders, and it suggests to you that they think that they have to entrench themselves in position for as long as they live, then it makes other people also think that if that is what you intend to do, then I can also go around the corner and make sure that whatever I have to do to also get my power, I do it. Look at what happened in the last 2020 elections when innocent people were killed just because they went to an election center to observe the counting or the collation of results. Up to now, what has happened to the families and the people who perpetrated this crime against these innocent souls? So if you see some of these things happening, and we only go and talk about the nice things like you heard the vice president and also the Minister of Foreign Affairs speaking about, then it is counter to what the reality is on the ground. So yes, I agree with you. Let us practice the virtues that we preach at platforms and make sure that we go through this peacefully. And so for me, majority of us who claim we are committed to peace should ensure that our speech, our deeds, and our action also match the things we preach. Then we can agree with the UN that yes, we are hoping for peace to prevail in all our endeavors and everything we do as people of this country.
Let's get into the Ghanaian Times newspaper now. At the 75th UN Peacekeeping Ministerial Meeting, let's pay attention to peacekeeping challenges, VEEP to UN member states. We've already interacted on that. Jospon Group signs ITMO credit deal with Swiss government at COP28. There's also Tourism Ministry, Guma Group signed $50 million agreement to develop tourism sector. We brought that to you in the papers yesterday. NDC rallies support for minority to reject LI to ban importation of selected items. Since you're on the NDC side, I'll get into the story and find out what you make of it. But let me start on the climate and environmental protection front. I'm going to page 12 before I come back to page 11. So let's quickly get there. So, is it page 12? It should be page 12. Yes. So, in a landmark event attended by a delegation from Ghana led by the president, by the way, 600 plus of us went there. I'll be getting into some of those issues tomorrow. But in a landmark event attended by a delegation from Ghana led by the president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the Swiss government has signed an authorization document conferring the internationally transferred mitigation outcome, that is ITMO credit, on the integrated waste recycling and compost facilities of the Jospon Group of companies. The signing ceremony took place on the sidelines during the ongoing COP28 in Dubai, symbolizing the country's or the company's unwavering commitment to global sustainability objectives. And that's the story there. 91 Agenda 111 projects ongoing nationwide. That's according to Dr. Insia Asari. Okay. We're waiting to see when they are completed, and we can start working with them. In the meantime, the hospital that was broken down still hasn't got back. It hasn't found its feet again. Recently, we were talking about the fact that we would get it back on course after how many years? For the sake of the people in those areas and beyond, let's get it done, shall we? Then I'll do this story. NDC rallies support for minority to reject LI to ban importation of selected items. Now, the NDC yesterday called on Ghanaians in the media to support the minority in Parliament to stop the government's proposed law to ban the importation of selected food and non-food items into the country. Some of the proposed restricted items are rice, poultry, fruit juice, noodles, intestines, soap, iron, and steel. It said the proposed law, if passed, could give discretionary powers to the Minister of Trade and Industry, Mr. Kwabena Tahiru Hammond. And it goes on and on. Today, we'll have a conversation with the ranking member of the Trade and Industry Committee of Parliament. What do you make of these stories, though?
Yeah, sure. So, like we said, and NDC insisted, some of us are primarily not against the ban on the importation of some of these goods. But the question is that, are we sure we are sustainable, self-sustainable in the production of these items within the country? What are we doing as a way of ensuring and then supporting the individuals who are into these goods to make sure that we have the figures and the numbers that we need to feed ourselves? The other thing we are complaining about is that the kind of power they intend to give to the minister and its committee will be too much, and it will birth serious corruption within the Ministry of Trade and Industry, where individuals will have to seek the clearance from a particular person or a group of people. In our language, they say,
unfortunately, I'm losing you, Maxwell, so the saying is not actually being said, just to play on words. Maxwell, if you can hear me, just let me know. Can you hear me, Maxwell?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So we
we
missed the saying, so just go back to the saying. All right, I think there's a bit of a challenge with Maxwell's connection. Let's do this one more time. Max, if you can hear me, we missed the saying. Just go to it and let's move on. Hello, Maxwell?
Ben, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Because of time, very quickly with the saying so we can move on.
Yeah, Ben, can you hear me? Okay. All right, so like I'm saying, it said in Everywhere, I hope you understand. It means that we already choked with corruption and we want to add more of it. In this country, we know the things that happen. And now to say that we'll give the powers to the minister and a so-called committee to determine who can import what particular good into the country will make it worse off, and all of us will be dead by the time the tenure of this MPP government is over. And so we want to critically say that let's not go the way they intend to go. Let us go through the system critically. You know, Buta is against this move by the Minister of Trade and Industry, Katie Hammond, to go to the extent he wishes to go to. And so for me, let us watch out these things very critically. Even if we do not under this government of the MPP that is already choking us with corruption and its related issues, I think it will be worse off. Now, about the COP28, in as much as I wish to congratulate the Johnson Group of companies for making that landmark agreement and signing, we want to say that sometimes, you see, the sheer number of people that we take to these places and the amount of money of the state that they would have wasted in quote takes away the shine from whatever good might have resulted from these meetings. And so for me, we are happy that Johnson is on the way to make sure that these issues concerning climate change and other things are brought to the barest minimum. But let's be critical about, I don't know what is about this COP thing that every year we send so many number of people to these conferences. We keep talking about it, but it looks like nobody wants to listen and they don't hear. I don't know what else we can do as Ghanaians. We have spoken about this issue on several occasions, but it looks like those people who attend the COP have something critical that they need to go and do. I don't know what they do. But it's a problem. It's a problem, my brother.
Right.
It's crazy.
Let's get into these other papers, and that's how we shall conclude. The Daily Guide this morning, Ghana reaffirms commitment to UN peacekeeping. We've brought you details of that story. Why Jasekan judge was fired. We've also brought you that story. In fact, yesterday we went into it. CPP sacks top executives. Then this one, running mate saga. NPP gives Bawumias extra time. And then you have no appellate jurisdiction over High Court, OSP told. Let me take those two stories very quickly, and we shall get ready to wrap. So on page 6 of the newspaper, the Office of the Special Prosecutor seems to have incurred the wrath of Justice Nicholas Mensah Abudakwi, the presiding judge of Accra High Court's Human Rights Division, yesterday over what the judge described as abuse of its powers. Justice Abudakwi also described as scandalous depositions made by the OSP in its affidavit in answer to a human rights action filed by former secretary to the dissolved Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining, Charles Cromwell Bissu. Now, the court said the OSP is, quote, abusing its power and putting up a posture that suggests that it has appellate jurisdiction over the High Court. The other issue I want to state is, quoting him, you have in your paragraphs 21, 22, and 23 of your affidavits in answer, which you are claiming is misleading the court to injunct a non-existent warrant. Justice Abudakwi said, with regard to the OSP's paragraph 22, you went on to make certain depositions. Are you saying the court doesn't have its own mind? Why are you saying all these things? So that's the back and forth there as far as this High Court judge is concerned, and whatever appellate jurisdiction the OSP may have over the High Court. Then on page 3, the NPP has given its flag bearer, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumias, additional time to select his running mate for the 2024 elections. This follows Dr. Bawumias' request to the party's National Council, which has the power to make exceptions to the party's rule. The party's constitution requires the vice presidential candidate to be chosen 1 year before elections. However, considering Dr. Bawumias' election as flag bearer, the party leadership has waived this requirement. The extension of time for Dr. Bawumias means the party has suspended the constitutional provision to allow for further consultation. And on the front page of the Business Finder, seek debt cancellation from external creditors. That's the IFS in terms of where we find our economy. But these are the stories. Do you want to react to Dr. Bawumias and his running mate quickly?
Speak about the OSP. Yes, these are early stages of the OSP, even though it's been there for some few number of years. The first one left and the second one is also struggling to find his feet. Listening to a lot of lawyers, they think that it's always a back and forth issue. And so if he has to be going to the courts to make sure that he defends himself, why not? Yes, of course, he needs to be giving us updates as the public. We also have a mind of our own. Law, legality, yes, I'm not a lawyer. I will not be able to speak too well about what it's supposed to be. But I'm sure that it's an enhanced common sense. And so some of the things that we see as Ghanaians and then we have an outcry, it's all in the bid to ensure that we kept corruption to the barest minimum. So we would encourage Kisi Ajaben to ensure that he doesn't give up as easily as the first person did, Alamisi.
Amidu.
Yes, Amidu. And we'll pray and hope that Ghanaians will give him the necessary support to be able to push through. Like he said earlier, if you want to fight corruption, corruption itself will fight you. And so it should be ready to be fought by the issues of corruption. But I wish him well. About Bawumias, as for MPP...
30 seconds on Bawumias. 30 seconds. We have to go.
The Vice President Bawumias, as for the MPP and waiving of their constitutional distance, it's always been there. Even for himself, we have known that he was not qualified at the time he was appointed to become the Vice President of Nanado. But it has to be done for him to become the Vice President. And for himself, now that they're serving the one-year mandate is eluding him, they want to waive off that constitutional mandate as well. We wish him well. I know it is not an easy thing for him, but I just pray for whoever he brings, I'm not sure he's going to make mine. So you should just do CCC, Nanabo, and choose one of the several people we have heard of, and let's see what happens. I'm sure that JDM,
Max, we have to go.
And then whoever here,
Max, we have to go.
So we wish them all the best in their bid to choose whoever they want to choose as the
All right, thank you. Maxwell Lukuto is the NDC's parliamentary candidate-elect for South Tong. Thank you very much. I'll just leave you, our viewers, with these stories. Climate change, 2023, hottest year since records began. If you've been feeling the heat, well, this explains it. And look at what we're doing to our environment when things are getting worse. What country will we bequeath to the generations to come? Peru court orders release of ex-president Fujimori, and bus plunges into ravine, killing 16 in the Philippines. And it's so sad. Our hearts go out to all the Filipinos, because guess what? In recent days, there was that Catholic mass with 4 people shot, and now we have this incident. God help the people of the Philippines. I'll just wrap with this. Congratulations to Professor Ivan Adai-Mensah. Yesterday, you launched your autobiography, My Life, a Historical Narrative, at the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it, but I'll do my best and I'll grab a copy of the book. Prof, we salute you. And thank you for actually finally putting pen to paper about your life. That's how we cap off the news review. This segment brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They're offering free prostate screening if you're a man, free fertility screening if you're a woman. Just reach out to them at any of their branches. In Accra at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi Krono Abwehia behind the Angel Educational Complex, Takrade Anaji State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa in Esiama and some other. Call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. And for a certain Chelsea, the Blues, what song will I sing for them? Da-da-na. Anyway, we gave them a spanking yesterday, Manchester United, and we are on course. Sports is up next. Welcome back on the AM show. Today we continue the conversation on government's intention to ban the imports of certain products. Call it a ban, call it a restriction. We'll be hearing today from the ranking member on Parliament's Trade Committee, Yusuf Sulemana. He's also a member of Parliament for Bole Bamboy. He joins the conversation. Mr. Sulemana, a very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
Thank you for... I don't think we've had a conversation on this platform before, have we?
No, I think the last time I came here was in 2018 or so.
Okay.
So it's been a very long time that I've come here. Yeah.
Well, speaking of Bole Bamboy, it has a bit of a history, and your party's flag bearer also has his roots from there. How is your constituency? Let's start the conversation from there.
Yeah, so the constituency is doing well, but first of all, let me say good morning to our viewers and my constituents. Today we are talking about the Bole Bamboy constituency, and I'm saying that the constituency is doing very well. This is a constituency that produced one of the gentle presidents that we've ever had, who is coming back to seek the mandate of the people from 2025 onwards. We're hoping that Ghanaians will give him the second opportunity to continue to do what he had started. And so the constituency is in good hands. He handled it very, very well. And then later on, my uncle, the late Joseph Sakakati, took over from His Excellency, the former president. And after him, the good people of Bole Bamboy honored me and also asked me to represent them. And so I came to Parliament in 2017. So this is my second term. The good news is that they have also voted massively for me at the last primaries. What it means is that, God willing, in the 9th Parliament, I will be representing the people again. Yes.
All right. So let's get into some topical matters now that we've got your constituency out of the way. But maybe just to dwell a bit on your constituency. So in terms of education, for example, what is it like? I always do this with members of Parliament when they come here. Education, the economic life of your constituency, among other matters. What is the economy of your constituency? What do they do?
Yes, basically we are into farming.
Farming, right.
And also small-scale mining, whatever name you give to it.
Small-scale mining.
It's very prominent in the area, from Bamboy down to up to a place called the Kurupe and all of that. You have gold deposits. And so there are some, if you like, community mining going on there. And we also have people who go into fishing, a few people who are also doing fishing, but predominantly farming is our business.
I see.
And so economically, that's what we do. In terms of education, we are not doing badly. The secondary school, for instance, last 2 years was one of the best secondary schools in terms of the senior high certificate examination results. And so in terms of education, I can say that we have our challenges, but we are doing well, except to say that, especially when it comes to basic education, you have infrastructural problems. You still have children lying on their bellies while studying. And again, teachers are lacking in some of the communities. These are some of the problems that we are facing. But it's not just Bole alone, or Bole Bamboy alone. It also cuts across the whole country. Now, focus is on secondary education at the expense of basic education. And that is a problem that we
you think there's too much of a focus on secondary education?
We discussed,
or senior high?
Senior high, there's so much focus on that at the expense of primary education. And so this was one of the issues that we discussed in Parliament yesterday. There was a statement on that, and it generated a lot of debate. And so the Speaker even asked that the Minister of Education should come with a statement so that we can delve into it very well and see if we can make some recommendations to the executive.
Okay. So let's get into some other substantive matters. The LI to be laid before Parliament for debate on that matter. In fact, that debate has started on many fronts in respect of a ban on imports or a restriction on imports. KT Hammond has been pushing for that. I also note that your side in Parliament has said that you are against the imposition of such restrictions. I just want you to spell out, because I know there was a moment of truth held a few days ago. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago? What is the official position of the NDC? Before I probe further, what is the official position?
So our official position is that we're not going to support the minister to lay the legislative instrument, and for that matter, to get it passed. Our stand is that we are against it in its current state. But let us also be clear that we are not saying that policies that will ensure that our balance of payment is improved, I wouldn't support it. We are not also saying that policies that will strengthen our city will not support it. But the LI in this state cannot solve the problems that the minister is seeking to solve. And that is why we're saying that we're not going to accept it in this form. So that should be made clear. It's not as if we are saying that policies that will help our balance of payment situation will not be supported. No, we're not also saying that we will not support any policy that will strengthen our currency. But this LI in its current state cannot, and we repeat, it cannot solve these issues that he seeks to resolve. So that's our official position.
All right, now let's break it down. You talk about the fact that this LI, this legislative instrument, will make KT Hammond too powerful. How so?
Yes, so for instance, if you look at the LI that he's bringing, but let me just give you a background to this. Now, the minister, by Act 503, has the right to enact or to come along with legislative instruments. And that is why he's hanging his strength on. So he's come to Parliament seeking to lay a legislative instrument to restrict the importation of what he calls strategic commodities.
Right.
And there are about 20, he started with about 22, now there are 24 products.
So he's added on. I mean, we can talk about some fruit juices, we can talk about rice, we can talk about poultry, sugar, and all of that.
And all of that. So he's taken off cement and brought in others. So he was 22, now he's 24. Now, under normal circumstances, before you come to lay a legislative instrument, you do what we call pre-laying. That's a convention. There's no law that says that you must do pre-laying, but there's a reason for that. The reason is that once you lay a legislative instrument, Parliament cannot do any significant changes to it.
Right.
So what you normally would do is to first bounce it with the mother committee. In this case, the Trade and Industry Committee. Unfortunately, Honorable KT Hammond decided not to involve the Trade Committee.
Why do you think he did that?
There's a reason that we cannot tell us we sit here. We are still wondering why he would decide not to involve us.
Do you think he realized that there was something off with the LI and so he was trying to evade?
That is our suspicion. We think that...
That's your suspicion?
Yes, we think that if he had brought it to us, I would have made significant changes to it. Perhaps that wouldn't have also inured to his benefit. As we speak, in that LI, okay, if you look at section 13 of it, he is the only person who has the right to give a permit, grant a permit, or to refuse a permit, even though he's going to set up an 11-member committee.
Right.
Now, that 11-member committee, he's the one to appoint all of them. And that 11-member committee, 4 of them form a quorum to be able to make to take decisions. Now, that committee is just an advisory committee. After they had gone through the applications and made their recommendations to him, the minister can decide to say, I won't take your recommendations. If you're saying I shouldn't give, I will give. If you're saying I should give for this particular person, I wouldn't give. Clearly, there's no need even setting up that committee. And so we're saying that it's going to give him so much powers. And once you have set powers, the next thing is corruption. Because you abuse the power, and then you begin to say that, oh, if you can give me this much, why not? I give it to you. But let's don't forget, when people are able to pay money to get the permit, they are going to add on whatever they would have paid to the minister or whosoever is taking the money to the price of the item. And so ultimately, it is the Ghanaian consumer who's going to suffer. And that's why we are saying that we represent the people, will not allow Ghanaians to suffer. Already, You all know the situation in which we have found ourselves. We cannot sit and allow them to add on this hardship. And so we're saying that there's going to be abuse of the system, given the kind of arrangement that he has.
But K.T. Hammond says he's a man of integrity. At least he has, suggested that. And you seem to be saying, without a shadow of a doubt, that corruption will happen. Is that what you're suggesting? Or are you hinging it on the aphorism that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts?
That's our point, okay? And nobody's an angel. And I don't want to go into who K.T. Hammond is and who he's not.
But
okay,
I think we should. I think we should, because these are some of the things. If there's something character-wise that would not make this fit for purpose, it ought to be made known.
Clearly, he had held some public positions before, and we all know that at a point he had to be summoned before a court because certain things hadn't gone on well.
Like what?
For instance, the drillship project, where he was alleged that he has some corrupt acts, taking place within the transaction.
But that was an allegation.
It is.
Was it ever proven?
It was an allegation, and it is an allegation. But what we are saying is that in order not to create room for such allegations to come up again, why don't you do the right thing? And we're saying that giving him that power would definitely lead to corruption. And once there's corruption and monies are paid, ultimately it is the consumer who suffers. Again, this bill in its state, as I speak to you, is against one of the conditions of the IMF. We are going around saying that they should give us 600 billion dollars. We are going around asking that they should give it to us. One of the conditions, if you look at their staff report.
So you're talking of the 3 million and the tranches of 600 million.
If you look at their staff report, page 75, it says that there should not be any restrictions on such commodities. Why are we doing it? As I speak to you, the World Bank is speaking to them that they shouldn't do it, they shouldn't lay it. And they are telling the World Bank that they have not laid it. When, in fact, even yesterday, the minister was on the floor trying to lay this. Again, we are saying that we don't have the capacity to produce these commodities that he's talking about. For instance, take rice. Today, as we speak, our local production is about 4%. In 2016, there was a policy to support the rice industry. And I was working with Exim Bank. Okay, it was EDIF and now Exim Bank. Government had come out with a policy statement and a direction that we should support sugar. And so you realize that the Community Sugar Factory was set up, and Exim Bank had given us about $1.5 million to support it. Again, we were supposed to support what we call the broader revitalization program. And some huge sums of money was also disbursed to poultry farmers in this country, including Boris B, Akati Farms, and many other poultry farmers. At the end of the day, we were able to produce so much of poultry in this country. And so what we expect is that, let us know the data. What is the quantity of local rice that we are able to produce? What is the quantity, the tonnage of sugar that we are able to produce? And all of the products. Now, once we know that, we can now say that we are going to restrict based on our strength in terms of our local capacity in producing those commodities. All these information is not available. And the minister is just interested in pushing this down our throat. And we think that is problematic. Again, when you do this, you are going to also encourage smuggling. Now, if you say that huge importers of rice should not do it, and that you are restricting them, what they simply do is to bring it to, let's say, Cote d'Ivoire, and then smuggle it into this country.
Right.
When you do that, you are going to lose taxes. So these are some of the concerns, and we're saying that the man should hasten slowly. Even as we speak, stakeholders in the industry have not been consulted. 2 days ago, the Subsidiary Legislation Committee invited me because they were holding a stakeholder engagement with some people who had petitioned the speaker. It turned out that even the stakeholder report that K.T. Hammond tendered in to the Subsidiary Legislation Committee, one, there were no signatures to it. That's not the normal thing. And two, most of the people at the stakeholder engagement said they knew nothing about that report. So why is he in a rush?
All right. We also know that the bill must go through a 21-day process to ensure that it passes. And already looking at the time, I'll get into the nitty-gritty of some aspects of the bill that you've mentioned and also do some comparisons. I shared these last week Friday so that we can look at the real importation picture. Before that, I see a message coming through. Jomo Pokwasi Firstly says, what sort of provisions have we made as a country before this proposed ban on importation of certain vital commodities? But looking at the 21-day window that we have to look at before Parliament, ups and rises. That's the word I was looking for. Is it possible to still do this, even if you are sitting every day? Is it possible?
Yeah, so it is not possible. As we speak, like I said yesterday, the process is this. The law mandates him to come straight to Parliament and lay the legislative instrument. But I said here that once it is laid, the House cannot do any significant changes to it. So by practice and by convention, you always will go to the Subsidiary Legislation Committee. They will do what we call winnowing. Take out what is not necessary, bring in what they think is necessary, judge with you, and then get to a point where they are okay with it. Then you now come and lay it. And then it's referred to the Subsidiary Legislation Committee. Within a day or two, they're able to come out with a report. Now, once it is laid, the very day that is laid, we'll start counting. Right. 21 certain days it matures. Even if the committee failed to bring the report, once you have the 21 certain days, the bill becomes operational, it becomes a law, and then you can run with it. And so in this case, when he came to lay it, he didn't want to go to the subsidiary legislation. He was advised to go to them. He went to them. They made significant changes to the LI. And they asked him to go and incorporate that, bring it for them to see before he goes to lay it. He didn't go back to them. He came straight to the floor wanting to raise it. And that was when some of us came up strongly against it and appealed to the Speaker to allow us time to look at it very well. Thank God the Speaker listened to us. And so he was not able to lay it. And he was asked to go back to the committee. 2 days ago, the committee met with stakeholders. Honorable Minister will not wait. Yesterday, he was in Parliament again, struggling to lay it. Again, we said, no, you have the right to lay it, but don't lay it and come and take it back again, because it won't work. In any case, from now up to the time we rise, I don't think he's able to make the 21 sitting days. Right. Unless, of course, the Speaker decide that will sit on weekends, which will be difficult, because we're going to have our estimates from the budgets representing each of the ministries, and then finally we'll get the appropriation bill passed. As I speak to you, even the budget itself has not been approved. So we have not even started doing the appropriations. So the time is so tight, I don't think even if he lays it, he's going to get the 21 sitting days for it to mature. But if he lays it and he's not able to get the 21 working days, when we come back, you can still continue to count and then get the number of days for him to go ahead. Now what we are doing is that we are telling Ghanaians that if this is passed, there will be monopoly. If this is passed, there will be smuggling of goods, of these commodities, and so government is going to lose tax. If this is passed, there's going to be unemployment. Why do I say so? There are a number of people who are involved in the value chain of car business, the garages, the spare part dealers, and I'm surprised that people like the Abosokan, the Swami, people who voted this party into government, they will tend to treat them this way. For instance, go and see the number of people at the Abosokan spare part dealers enclave. Now you're saying that you're going to restrict the importation of vehicles. Which vehicles, we don't know. There are so many garages everywhere in this country. Even Tamale and the north, there are garages, and these garages have employed so many people. Now you're saying that you're going to restrict the importation of these vehicles. What it means is that any rational businessman who want to lay off some of the workers, if they come to sit and they have nothing to do, are you asking them to go and chop grass? These are some of the things that we're talking about. All right. And as I speak to you, in 2016, unemployment rate was about 8.4. Today is hovering around 13.9%. As at September 2023.
So all those are valid points you're raising. I'll get into some some bits for us all to share. But a quick one. What numbers are needed in Parliament for this bill to pass? A simple majority?
Yeah, so if he's able to lay it, we'll need 2/3 of the House. And that's about 183 thereabouts.
Right.
I have spoken with the majority side, especially the trade committee members. They were not happy because we were not involved. And I've also spoken with other friends from that side. And if you ask them today, it's just that sometimes you cannot rely on them. They'll tell you that even if it comes to voting, we're going to get the 2/3. But you can't rely on them. We have seen instances where they themselves took decisions, very legitimate decisions that would have inured to the benefit of this country, but somewhere along the line, they had to drop them. For instance, when they had come out to say that the finance minister should be changed, it was a good policy, a decision. Okay, but somewhere along the line, they drop it. So we can't rely on them. And so for us, the 137, we are solidly against this restriction, and if he's able to push it through by laying it, we'll just wait. When the time comes, we'll demonstrate to Ghanaians that we are against it. And there are so many ways of doing this. We can insist that we vote, and if we are 137, Ghanaians would have known that we have gone against it. Or decide to walk out and leave them to do whatever they want to do. There are so many ways, and when we get there, leadership will give us the guidance.
Right, so 183 is what KT Hammond will need.
Sure.
That's what he will require.
Sure.
Which is about how many more? If you do the deduction from the...
That's about
137. Because it actually is 183.3, but you don't have 0.3 of a person. So if you do the deduction, they would need about 46 point something.
Exactly.
Either 46 or 47.
Let's say 47.
More people. So if all MPP members voted for it, they would need 47 members from the NDC for this to pass. That's what you're saying?
No, so you see, when you there's a motion and you say that you are against it, for instance, he's coming to lay this bill, and then when...
Or is it your side that will require that?
Yes, who will require that?
2/3.
Who will require, yes, 2/3 to torpedo it.
So in this instance, you rather would be looking for 47 people on the majority side.
Exactly.
To back you up.
And I'm saying that you can't rely on them.
Right. That's quite a number that you would have to deal with.
That's a problem. And that is why we are calling on civil society organizations, the clergy, and all those who matter. Ben, let me just tell you something. 3 days ago, I got a call from a very, senior person from our party who suggested to me that, why are you, Paul, pushing that he shouldn't lay this thing? Already Ghanaians are suffering. So let him lay it. By next year, the first to second quarter of next year, the hardship will be unbearable. And that will make our work easy. Ghanaians will vote for us. So that's the way I think we should go. Now, having consulted a lot of our leadership and even, those who matter in this party, the position is that we are not just interested in winning power. We are representing the good people of this country. Why should we sit down and allow them to be punished? Why should we sit down and allow them to go into hardship just because we want to win power? So our motivation is not because we want to win power. Our motivation is that we shouldn't sit down and allow this hardship to continue.
Okay, worst case scenario from your end, worst case scenario, the bill passes. What then happens? Let's assume your side comes to power. Let's assume that happens. You also have the opportunity of, changing this.
Sure, that's a possibility. And so we are consistent. If he lays it and we are not able to stop it using our numbers because we don't have the numbers, it will go through. But I can assure you that when we come, and we are coming in 2025, we will take this obnoxious policy off.
All right. So let's take a look, good people of Ghana, let's take a look at what exactly this means. Last week, Friday, I shared some slides. I'm going to share some of them with you to paint a picture, starting with what this means. That if you look at it, what Mr. Sulemana has been speaking of. So per the LI, the requirements for import. A person shall not import or cause to be imported into the country a selected strategic product without an import permit issued by the minister on the written recommendation of the Import Permit Committee. Then 2, A person shall not facilitate the importation of a selected strategic product, or B, shipment of a selected strategic product into the country without an import permit issued by the minister on the written recommendation of the Import Permit Committee. That's what is being said will make the minister too powerful, and he likely will abuse those powers. Then you look at the list of items in there, and there's been an add-on. There have been additions, but you're seeing rice. You're seeing guts, bladders, and stomachs of animals, yemwadi as we call them. You're seeing poultry. You're seeing animal and vegetable oil, margarine, fruit juices, soft drink, mineral water, corrugated paper and paper boards, mosquito coil and insecticides, soaps and detergents, motor cars, iron and steel, diapers, polymers, plastics and plastic products, fish, biscuits, canned tomatoes, ceramic tiles, clothing and apparel, noodles and pasta, sugar. All of these and more are going to be affected. And these are staples. These are things that we use practically every day. Now let's go and look at the metrics in terms of the statistics for some of the products and what our production levels are and what we're looking at. Now, if you look at Ghana's imports versus exports, you would realize the yellow line reflects imports, the black line reflects exports. You would realize that in 2012, there was some parity. It was pretty close, imports versus exports. Then you'd realize that moving on to 2013, that's where there was some disparity. 2014, the gap had widened a bit. Imports were actually higher than exports, but it wasn't too bad. It was about $1.7 billion. Then we go to 2015, you would see the disparity becoming about $3.5 billion. And in 2016, it closed up again, the import-export value. So you would have imports of 15.8 billion and exports of 16.2 billion. But then since that time, you look at 2017, the widening started again, just like in 2014, of about $2.6 billion. And then it's continued. The trend continued in 2018, 2019, with a wider gap. Then you look at 2020. That is where, right before 2020, there was some reduction in the exports, and then imports took over. Since that time, 2020 to be specific, there's been a gap of about $3.1 billion. That was in 2020. And since that time, it's been widening. As we speak now, in the latest data we have, our exports, though this year may not have been factored in, our exports have declined far below our imports. So you look at an export value of 14.10 billion, an import value of 20.20 billion. That's a gap of about $6.10 billion. Now, if we go to the next slide, you would also see Ghana's rice production. Just a quick one. In 2017, we're producing 500,000 metric tons. Okay, so 450,000 metric tons. That was the figure there. That's total demand versus local production. So if you look at local production, we had 450,000 metric tons. The local production at the time was 1 million metric tons. That left a gap of about 550,000 metric tons. You go to 2018, there was an increment because while we had moved to 510,000 metric tons in production, the consumption had moved to the total demand, 1.12 million. And look at the trend. It's been increasing. While at some point, for example, in 2019, our local production fell, you would realize that the total demand kept moving up. In fact, it kept moving up. Our production levels have not gone beyond 600,000 in a while, which was attained in 2021. It is in 2023 that we are looking at about 800,000 metric tons. But note, the consumption has shot up to 1.5 million metric tons. It means we are still producing just about half or less than half of our total consumption. Now, if you go to the next slide, I would explain something further. If you look at poultry, for example, which is also one of those on the list, you would realize that the tale is even more scary. In 2020, and by the way, the black bar chart represents total demand. The yellow one represents imports. The green one represents local production. If you look at these, you would see that total demand 2020 for poultry, 356,000 metric tons. In 2021, 400,000 metric tons. In 2022, 460,000 metric tons. We've been adding on anything between 40 and 60,000, an average of about 50,000 every year. But then look at local production. In 2020, 58,000 metric tons. In 2021, 50,000 metric tons. In 2022, 60,000 metric tons. We are adding on in local production by a few thousands. Then you look at the gap. How do we fill the gap? With imports. And that's where in 2020 you would see. Look at the total demand, 356,000. Out of that, what we imported was 295,000 metric tons, almost 300,000. You look at 2021, what we imported, 350,000 metric tons, and the total demand was 400,000. We only produced 50K. You look at 2022, same picture. In fact, then we had to import 400,000 metric tons. And what I'll wrap with, the example of even Nigeria, which in rice, they put up their rice pyramids and all of that. But even look at their story and how it has taken them, how long it has taken them to get some balance. You look at 2010, Nigeria's rice production stood at 2.8 million metric tons, okay? Now let's fast forward. They've gone to 2.9, 3.42, 3.08, 3.78. Then you go all the way to 2022. It is only in 2022 that they've been able to come anywhere close to doubling their production. It's taken them 12 years to get to 5.35 million. In fact, if you look at twice the value of 2.8 million, you will get 5.6 million metric tons. They are even still not there yet. They are still not there yet. They need about another 0.65 or 650,000 metric tons before they can reach twice as much as they were producing in 2010. So the picture is not as simple as it's being painted. This thing must be gradual. And like I said, Nigeria is trying to do it, and even they are struggling. It's not easy. So I just had to establish those facts as well. But having got here, okay, what next? Because you've had your moment of truth. You've spoken extensively about this, but like has often been said in Parliament, the minority will have their say, the majority will have their way. If that happens, if you don't get the 2/3 of Parliament to back you up, what then do you do?
Yeah, so like we all just discussed here, we have our limitations. If at the end of the day, the minister insists to lay it and is late, and he's able to get the required number of sittings, and it becomes a law, we're saying that when we come, and inshallah we are coming, it's something that we're going to abolish. Now, we are also doing what we're doing, speaking to the public and calling on well-meaning Ghanaians to speak to the president and his vice president. This policy is not just emanating from K.T. Hammond. Normally, you have to take such policies to cabinet meetings. So it is at cabinet meetings that you are giving the go-ahead. And so whatever he's doing, he has the backing of the president and his vice president. They claim they are a listening government. If they are a listening government, we, the minority, and many, many Ghanaians, including World Bank and IMF, are all saying that this is not a time to impose restriction on these commodities. And so we think that we still have some window for civil society organizations, the media, and all of us to call on government, and for that matter, the president and the vice president, to ask the Minister of Trade to, as it were, stop pushing for the laying of the legislative instrument. Clearly, we have all seen that we are not there yet. And the question to ask is, what have you done to support local industries? Let's take rice. Let the Ministry of Agric, and for that matter, the government, tell us what they have done to support rice farmers. And I'm saying that under John Dramani Mohammed's administration, we supported rice by importing, helping farmers to import combined harvesters. I was deeply involved because I was at Exim Bank, and we gave money to rice farmers, even small-scale rice farmers in the north and other places. I remember it was Dr. Yakubu Al-Hassan, the former deputy minister, who was handling this. Then there was also the poultry revitalization program, which was also handled by the Honorable Deputy Minister then, Hannah Bisiu, where we also gave some interest-free loans to the poultry sector, where some people were giving money and some people were giving all sorts of support so that they are able to increase their local production. When you came, you stopped it. Again, the government had decided to help establish Komenda Sugar Factory so that we are able to produce sugar locally. Then, gradually, we are able to reduce the importation as we increase local production.
And I was about to get to the Komenda issue, because whenever I have members of the NDC come here, I don't let you get away with Komenda. You did not produce any sugar. It's still not producing any sugar. Whether the right mechanisms were in place. Before Alan Trematin, the former trade minister, left, he had made some promises which never materialized. But I keep saying that while we may lay blame at the doorstep of X or Y person, your party also didn't do us justice with Komenda.
So what were we expected to do? Then the problem is this. We came and took a decision that we're going to invest in the production of sugar. That is a major policy decision, okay? And we expect that any other government that will come on board will continue with it. So as a result of that,
they said the deal was fraught with shadiness.
So what prevented them from investigating it and ensuring that the right thing was done? The policy itself shouldn't suffer, okay? The policy itself shouldn't suffer. The project shouldn't suffer. If there were some kind of mismanagement or alleged corruption, deal with that. You don't say because of that, you throw the whole project away. That is why we are here. Are we saying that there's no need to produce sugar in this country? Definitely, the answer is there's a need for us to produce sugar. And so if the government had taken up that decision to invest in the production of sugar, and we had gone in for a loan. Yesterday, the minister was in Parliament, and to compare the cost of the same equipment, okay, that he had asked from India, the price of it, and the price at which the NDC bought it, and thought that there was some wrongdoing. And I just, couldn't hold it. You see, the project was what we call a turnkey project. Turnkey project in this case will mean that the cost of equipment, cost of shipping the equipment, consultancy, training, and constructing the whole structure. And so if we had invested $35 million into it, you can't compare that to just the cost of the equipment alone, and you want to make a noise about it. For me, I thought that he was not well informed. Somebody somewhere is misleading him. What we are saying is that nobody can say that that policy is not a good policy. And so if you had started it, and there were problems with it, you deal with the problems. There was a Pricewaterhouse audit report, technical audit report, and they didn't say that stop the project. They had made recommendations as to how to go about it. Why did they sell the report? And allow the project to deteriorate, allow the factory to deteriorate to a point that even it became unattractive for people to want to invest in it. Why did they do that?
So you're suggesting some diabolism?
That's my point. To the extent that we were all in this country when Alan Trematin took courage and invested there and introduced the investor to the people of Komenda, and that he was coming to take off. I followed up with so many questions. He used COVID as an excuse, and later on he said that the project was not worth it. And so it's an albatross. And that's the words of Katie Hammond. It's an albatross, but you are still investing in it. So if it's an albatross, what's the alternative?
Oh, interesting dynamics in there. Let's take a little leap from there and settle on Parliament's leadership as far as the committees are concerned. You've had some sort of reshuffle, and rightly so, but explain to us what happens. How does this happen? What is the trigger, and what are the major shifts that we've seen in Parliament in this respect?
Yeah, Parliament operates on committees. We have two major committees. We have the select committees, and then we have the standing committees. And by our standing orders, each member of Parliament is supposed to serve on at least two committees. So, for instance, one from the select committee, and then another from the standing committee. Sometimes you have people serving on 2 or 3, but it shouldn't be one. Now, in the case of, what happened just recently is because you remember in January 20 this year, somewhere 25 4th January, there was a shake-up in the minority side where we had changed our leadership. Now, Honorable Atufosun was the ranking for finance. Honorable Amakofibua was the ranking for trade. Honorable Agboja was the ranking for rules. Now, if they have been moved to leadership positions, those leadership positions at the committee level became vacant. There's nothing like acting in our standing orders, where one will say that, okay, then the deputy rankings automatically will act. There's nothing like that. And so it was just hanging. We didn't know who exactly was in charge. They were so busy doing their leadership business, and so the committees, if you like, were suffering in one way or the other. Then again, you also realize that we have some by-elections. When Honorable Basua passed on, there was a by-election at Kumawu, and so a new member of parliament was sworn in. He was not assigned any committee, and so clearly he was also just hanging around. And so effectively, we were not able to do our work as a parliament, whether from the minority side or the majority side. And so leadership thought that there was a need for us to resolve it, especially so we are just about to take our estimates. And when you go for estimates, it is the two leaders, the ranking and the deputy ranking, who will have to, the ranking and the chairman, who will have to handle the estimates and then come to report to the preliminary. And so if you don't have them, it becomes difficult for you to even report to preliminary and report appropriately. And so leadership thought that we should do the necessary changes. And that is why you've seen that there's some changes in both the minority side and the majority side. For instance, we now have Patrick, who's become a chairman for the subsidiary, and then there's Nelson, who's supporting him. And then you have on our side, by the grace of God, I've now been elevated to rank for trade, industry and tourism.
You're now the ranking member.
Yes, and then my colleague Alhaji Isifu Baba from Nalerugu Gambaga, who's supposed to be the deputy ranking on our side. When it comes to trade, Honorable Ajay Mensah is now made, when it comes to road, is now made the ranking member, and then Honorable Aboji is now the deputy ranking member. Finance, my good brother and friend Adongo is now in charge, and Honorable Richard Achampong is the deputy ranking. And so some positions have been moved strategically to ensure that we prepare ourselves very well. Clearly, when it comes to debate and when it comes to the work on the floor of Parliament, the minority has proven to the majority that we have the men and we are ready to take over come 2025.
Well, let me take a bit of a pause now and bring in Dr. Rashid Rahman, Executive Director, Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs, for his take on these matters. Dr. Rahman, a very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
It's good to have you. My apologies for keeping you waiting briefly. I hope you've kept well.
Yes, I'm well. Thank you very much.
Right. I'd just like to find out from you, even before we get into the change in leadership or the change in watch in Parliament, do you have any take on the latest LI, the wrangling from both sides, and some of what we've discussed here this morning, the real implications of this LI if it passes? What's your take?
No, I don't have any take on that. I didn't follow that discussion, so sorry.
All right, Dr. Rahman, I see you don't want to go there at all. Let's talk about the shake-up in Parliament in terms of the committees and their different leadership. This, I don't know whether you would call it standard practice at this time, but what's your assessment of it?
I have three questions or three problems with what's happening right now in Parliament.
Okay.
In terms of the shake-up that, you call it. I think number one is the timing.
Timing, right.
Yes. Number one is the timing. Globally, I think the good practice is once members of parliament are appointed to a committee, the suggestion has always been that you leave them in that committee throughout the mandate of the legislature so that they can hone their skills and so on in that particular field. Over the years, our parliament, by and large, we've seen some level of stability of committees, committee membership, as compared to, for instance, other countries in the region, the Francophone countries, where we've done some work. And in those countries, every year, there's a change in leadership and even, extending to the membership of the committees. And we've always touted our practice, to be one that was heading towards, that stability. And now we are seeing this. If we leave even the issue of the stability aside, looking at the time when, they have to go and consider these estimates and so on, as the honorable member that you were speaking to earlier had indicated. I don't think you change the leadership of a committee at this point. So that is my first issue with this change. On the minority side, I hear clearly. Maybe the leader was, all the other people, behind him were occupying some of these important positions, and so they have to be replaced and so on. But the timing, for me, is the number one problem. Number two is that, so where is the standing orders? I don't know whether you have asked all the members that you've spoken to. I think we've talked about these new standing orders. All of us were very excited a few months ago and so on. I was hoping that by now, if there's anything going on in Parliament in terms of hierarchy, in terms of structure and so on, would have been, working on the basis of the new standing orders. So maybe you might want to ask the honorable member and whoever you speak to from inside Parliament, where are we with that? Is it stalled? Are we going to get the new standing orders, or this was just some excitement that we all had that has faded away and so on and so forth? And the third issue, and I don't want to go into whether somebody qualifies or somebody doesn't qualify and so on. But over the years, I think what we've been saying, and it's based on maybe practices from other parliaments that we copy from or we try to learn from. We have to make sure that people are put in the committees where they can be relevant, where they have expertise to contribute to the growth and the work of that committee. If you do a very careful analysis, in some instances, yes, people are put there because of their expertise, but in other instances, you just see it's just a question of either trying to create some balance or trying to make some people happy and so on. And that is not going to help us to advance, particularly the cause of oversight and accountability in our country. So these are just the general comments that I have about the current changes that are going on.
All right. So you talk about, of course, those who must be placed in certain committees. I believe the standard practice is that they look at the areas of expertise or experience of the person before they put them on some of these committees and more. But if you look at, you've spoken about the timing, and that was the first thing that hit me, that, okay, at this point in time, is it the best thing, especially as we're entering the final year of this 8th Parliament? Apart from these three, beyond these 3 points that you have raised, when you look at the shuffling and the people going to head these committees, what do you make of them? Anything that excites you, or are there instances where you feel we could have done better?
Well, I think on the maybe let me just talk about one of the most important, which is the challenge that we are all facing. Wherever you belong in the political divide, the economy is hitting all of us right now. Honorable Isaac Adongo, of course, I think if there's anybody who speaks on these matters and tries to hold the government to account, I think on the minority bench, I think we can't call anybody's name before his name. So I think for me, that is really kind of a strategic move. I think we need people like him, particularly at this point in our history. And as you would realize, and I believe everybody would agree, he has been on these financial issues over and over and over. So that's what I was talking about in terms of the kind of skills to putting people at the places where they can really make a significant contribution. So if there's anyone that stands out for me, I think that's that one. I don't want to go into the others because otherwise it brings you into a collision course with individual MPs. But that's not necessary at this point.
Then another issue that recently came to the fore, I'll just run it by you. If you want to comment on it, fine. The whole bit about approving the budget and everything that happened. I'm not concerned with the result because the Parliamentary Service has already confirmed to us that the budget for 2024 has not received approval. But the process of it, what happened with the Speaker calling for a voice vote, and then the acceptance at a point, then the questioning from the minority side, the request for a head count, which led to the majority's walkout. I just want to know, do you feel any infractions took place? Do you feel the right things were done? And now that the Parliamentary Service says there's no approval of the budget, what do you make of it? I just want to do on the process.
I don't think that anything wrong was done because we've seen instances where in this Parliament, people have challenged voice vote. Especially if you look, I don't think that, this is any rocket science. You hear the voices, you look, especially, during this budget process, there's been a significant disappointment, by members of Parliament because most of the time the House was empty. They were running away from one of the most sacred jobs that they have to perform.
One of their core, topmost functions.
And indeed. Because if there's any kind of important function for any member of Parliament, I think it is this one. And at this point in time, when we expect them to go in there, particularly given where our country is, we are not in a good place. So everybody was expecting that we will see the House full to the brim every single day during this process, so that they get answers for the citizens that they represent. On the contrary, they were running away from their jobs. The House was mostly empty. I'm not saying it. You took the cameras in there and we saw what was happening. And those were the things that led to this challenge. Otherwise, if everybody had shown up, everybody was in the House, we wouldn't get to this point where, at one point we say the budget was approved, another point it's not approved, and so on. But I think in terms of the processes and procedures, if any member, stands on, a standing order and say, look, I don't think that the ayes have it. Well, if indeed, whichever side thought that they had won, if they had the numbers, they should sit there and let the counting begin. It's as simple as that. So really, I think at the end of the day, it's all about the two sides ensuring that during these critical moments, we don't subject our country and we don't subject the institution to this kind of embarrassment by, demonstrating that we don't take this process as serious as it ought to be taken.
Dr. Draman, you've added a wealth of your experience and insight to our conversation, and we're grateful for your time. Unless you have any final words, we'll sew it up here with you, sir.
I think I don't have anything to add.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. That is Dr. Rashid Draman. He just joined the conversation. He is Executive Director, Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs. Let me come back into the studio. Yusuf Sulemana, who is now ranking member on the Trade Committee and also Member of Parliament for Bole Bamboy, is still in the studio here with me. You heard Dr. Draman's question about the standing orders. Where are we with that?
So let me tie the timing to the standing orders. I do agree with him when he said that he has a problem with the timing. Of course, one of the reasons why I said there was a need for reshuffle was because there was this change in leadership, especially from the minority side. And this happened in January. So we could have effected the changes earlier than we're doing now. But because we were working on the new standing order, the information that we were told, that we were given, was that instead of making those changes, we should rather wait, finalize the new standing order, and that would have taken care of
some of these,
the occurrence of the changes. Okay, and so we delayed somewhere. I think last 2 weeks, it was presented to us on the floor of Parliament. The new standing order was presented to us in the form of a paper. And normally when it is presented to you as in the form of a paper, the second leg is for you to move it as a motion. It will be debated and then adopted. And so as I speak to you, in terms of where we are, the standing orders have now been presented to preliminary, and we are waiting for a motion to be moved for it to be adopted. Now, Doctor also spoke about relevance.
Right.
When some of us joined Parliament in 2017, you were always given a form to fill and choose which committee you want to belong to. But there was also a committee that will ask that you bring your
credentials, right?
Your CV.
Right.
So they look at your background and see where they could place you. And so when I went, my intention was to go to the Finance Committee. And so I wanted Finance Committee, I wanted Public Accounts Committee and all of that. At the end of the day, I was called and told that, look, the Finance Committee, we think that you are qualified to go there, but we have a lot of people who were on that committee even before you came. Right. In the 6th Parliament, they were there and we couldn't change them. So we think that we want to push you to Trade Committee. Again, they also said that we needed to do some regional balance. And you see, you are doing politics. Much as we agreed that we have to do parliamentary business, there's also the need for some space to be created for others to also learn. And so sometimes you cannot have all the committees having only people who are
you would call them some sort of experts. You must have some.
You must have some who want to also learn.
Right.
Because, for instance, in some cases you have, let's say, 6-7% of, let's even say 70% of the people wanting to go to one particular committee, and they are all qualified. What do you do? Right. You cannot take all of them there. What you do is to select some to that committee and take some to different committees, hoping that they will learn and learn very, very fast.
Okay.
And the issue of what is it called? The timing also comes in because some ministers were appointed somewhere along the line. And so if you appoint a minister, because of the kind of system we run, they don't have enough time to sit in Parliament. We know that. And so you want people who have much time to be able to handle some of the issues that the committees handle. And so that is one of the reasons why the reshuffle was also necessary. But I do agree with him when he talks about the timing. We could have done this earlier, but again, it's as and when the reshuffle, the changes will be effected. If, for instance, somebody is appointed a minister, you don't wait and say that because it's closer to budget or it's closer to elections, you wouldn't do the necessary things to make sure that the committees are effective.
Okay, so important points you've made. Let's move the conversation forward. I also want us to look at the running mate saga in the NPP. And Dr. Bawumias has become the flag bearer of the party.
Okay.
But who runs with him? I've heard, I think, the women's organizer, Kate Jemfua, make mention of the fact that the person would be from the Ashanti region, would be a member of parliament and all of that. But it appears the Vice President needs more reflection on the matter. So he's petitioned the National Council in breach, if you like, of the Constitution. So they then, because of the petition, they've granted him more time. Ordinarily, the Constitution would say that within a 1-year period, which would have been maybe the 7th of December or something earlier, to the 7th of December 2024, when elections will be held. That has been granted him. Your party doesn't even have a running mate yet, and you appear not to be in haste to choose that. While in the MPP, we've seen so many names bandied about: the Education Minister, Dr. Yahweh Duchum, the Energy Minister, Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, the Majority Leader, Oseiche Mensah-Bonsu, all of these names. What is your reading of the situation and the lack of a choice as of now of a running mate? Because you guys are even far behind.
When you say we are far behind, I don't get it. We have not breached...
At least in terms of...
We have not breached any provisions of our Constitution.
Far behind in the sense that your flag bearer was selected long before this one. But it's constitutionally,
nothing prevents him from choosing the running mate as and when he thinks it's necessary. But in this case, there's a breach of their Constitution. Yes, they've given him the waiver and they've asked him to take his time and get them a credible running mate. But Ben, the problem is that the value will be the same. I don't think that any running mates, whether from a Asante region, whether a woman or whatever, will bring any change to the economic situation in which we find ourselves.
And but so, it's not only based on the economy that people are going to vote.
Yes.
People are going to vote on myriad issues, including education. And the MPP has touted free SHS.
I'm coming to that. The free HSS will not be something to bang on in these coming elections. But we are told that the NPP have decided to take their running mate from the Asante region. For some good reason. They want an Akan, northern combination and all of that. But I think that Ghanaians will want to look at the performance of the two political parties and not just the individuals. Yes, the individuals who have some impact, but Ghanaians will be looking at really who has been able to impact on their lives positively. And so if they are thinking of bringing somebody from Asante region, the question to ask is, the MPP has been in government all this while. What has been their contribution in Asante region? Recently, we were all shocked when we heard that the Asante Hini was going around looking for money to go and renovate the Komfo-Anokye Teaching Hospital. Right. When we know that huge sums of money has been sunk into a cathedral, when hospitals are dilapidated and people are dying, you think the people of Asante region are not reasonable? So they are going to vote not on the basis of who becomes a running mate, but on the basis of what impact on their lives. And so if you have a government that has been able to ensure that the economic activities of the Asante region is enhanced by building a modern market, which today has employed so many people, you think they are stupid not to reflect on that? You have a government that has built so many hospitals around the Asante region. There are so many of them. You have a government that has provided water for so many districts in the Asante region. You have a government that has provided road network within the Asante region, even though this region is not their stronghold. But the NDC government has done this to them. Recently, we heard the minister of the Central Regional Minister lamenting that most of the contractors are abandoning their projects because they were not paid. And this is a region that is called the stronghold of the MPP. So going to pick a candidate from that region, if you ask me, is not going to make any difference. And that's why I'm saying that...
But it's politically correct, isn't it?
It may be politically correct.
I mean, for the first time, they have a flag bearer of northern extraction. It only makes sense for them to,
to
focus on their stronghold and get a running mate from there.
What is political correct? What is political correct, in my view, is your ability to impact on the lives of the people who have respected you and voted for you. That is what I would call politically correct, not just individuals. You go and pick somebody there who cannot impact on the lives of the people. If you ask me, it's not politically correct. And I'm saying that you have very prominent people from Asante region, and those names that you have mentioned, Chairman Sabosu, Honorable Educhum, Honorable Matthew Opoku Perempe,
among others.
Among others. Very good people, very intelligent people, but that's not what we're looking out for. We are looking out for a government with policies and programs that will impact on the lives of the people. And so whosoever my good brother Bawumias will choose, if he asks me, is not going to make any impact because their policies have not inured to the benefit of the people. And that is what is going to judge their decision as to who party to vote for. For instance, you see, we have a leader, a vice president, who, when he says that I'll do this, you will have to think twice. There are so many instances where my brother's words haven't come to pass. And so whosoever he goes to bring to add him to himself will not bring any change. We're told that every community, every village in Ghana will be given water, potable water, and toilets. Where are we today? We're told that every constituency will be given $1 million annually. Starting from 2017 to date, where are we today? He was the one who shepherded who is the one who is managing the economy of this country as we speak. And at a point, he was so bold and proud to say that he had arrested the city and given the key to the IGP. Today, where are we? This is a man who we all touted to be one of the most experienced and intelligent economists. Today, he's not talking about economics. His interest is in digitalization. This is a man who made so many promises that we cannot even count and failed to deliver. So whether he brings an angel as his running mate or whatever, I'm saying that there wouldn't be any difference.
Well, it paints an interesting picture. Recently, I saw some fact check of whether the vice president had actually added votes to the MPP from the northern region. It makes for interesting reading because if you look at it, the tail of the tape from 1992, it's actually been reducing. So what will happen in the northern belt of the country versus the southern belt of the country, only God knows. We'll leave that to voters, as Sir John famously said, fear delegates, and we might extend it, fear voters. But just a quick one. How about the NDC? You don't have a running mate yet. From the rhetoric that we've heard from the former president, John Mahama, it would appear that he's not going to go with Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. There has been talk about the fact that it's going to be a man and all of that. The former president's own, words.
You heard this from him?
Well,
can you play it?
It's been made mention of.
No, if you have
time
evidence that is what he said.
It's been alluded to him.
So
okay?
for me, it's not something to.
But I just want to find out. When are you coming out with your running mate? Is it going to be Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman or is it going to be someone else?
When are we coming out with our running mate? This is a decision that is made at a certain level of our party. And so I cannot sit here and
You're part of the higher echelons of
No, I am not. I mean, we have leadership structure, the Council of Elders, the Functional Executive, and all of that. So the decision makers, with respect to who becomes our running mate, I'm not part of it, and I will not sit here and pretend as if I know anything about it. We'll leave it in the hands of those who matter, and I can assure you that at the appropriate time, they'll get us a running mate that will support His Excellency, the former president and the incoming president, John Dramani Mahama, to win the 2024 election, and then he will continue with his good things that he had started when he was the president.
Do we have an idea when? I mean, we're in the last month of the year. 2024 is just around the corner. When are you waiting for? Or do you want to see the candidate of the MPP before you come through with your candidate?
I do not think that it's a difficult decision for His Excellency, the former president, and those who are supposed to make this decision. It's not a difficult decision at all. And so for us, we are focused on our policies. 24-hour economy, what is it about? We should be able to tell Ghanaians, okay, what do we intend to do when it comes to education? We're saying that the free senior high school policy, we need to review it. What do we intend to do when it comes to health? Those are the things that Ghanaians want to hear, not necessarily a running mate. A running mate will not put food on our tables. We are in a situation today that you and I know that when you take your salary today, it won't get to the house. Everything will finish. That should concern an alternative government like that of the NDC. And so what we are focusing on is, let's put our house together. Let's be an alternative government by giving Ghanaians the hope and giving Ghanaians the necessary policies that when we come back to power, we're not going to behave like what we're seeing today. Today, look at where inflation is. What are we doing to bring it down? Today, look at where unemployment is. What policies are we thinking through so that when we put before Ghanaians, there will be some hope? I've always said that in life, anytime you don't have hope, then you are dead, you are gone. Anybody who hangs himself, God forbid, is because the person has lost hope and thinks that there's nothing again to hang on. And so we don't want Ghanaians to get that point. We want to provide hope, and that is why we are spending our time to come out with policies that we would have thought through very well, policies that will solve our problems.
Right.
That should engage us. And that's what the NDC flag bearer and the leadership of the NDC are doing. And I can assure you that we are almost done with our manifesto. And I can tell you, you listen to the manifesto, you look at the manifesto's content, and a thumb will be raised for us. And I can assure you that Ghanaians are going to vote massively for His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, because we all know where we are and we don't think that we want to be in this situation.
All right. I'm very grateful that you've taken the time to join this conversation. Our time is up, and we've looked at the pertinent issues. And as you go back, well, we hope that this LI, whatever work may be done, that both sides of Parliament, you work in the interest of the country, and that moving forward, sometimes when I have the parliamentarians here, I want to say that sometimes the rancor also becomes a bit too much, but sometimes the passiveness about, oh, it's from this side, so it must be this, or it's from that side, so it must be that. All of that must be taken in consideration of the national perspective. You represent your constituents. So speaking for the people of Ghana, I'm channeling it to you. Always do what is in the interest of the people. I'm not suggesting anything. No, I'm just saying that sometimes
I agree with you, but
with the walkouts, like we've seen recently and in the past, let's do what is...
That there are many calls on us to allow the LI to go, because many believe that will inure to our political benefit. But we're saying no, Ghana first. We're saying no. Let's ensure that our people don't continue to suffer by our policies.
Right.
And so it's not about Party A or Party B, but it's about Ghanaians. So Ben, thank you so much for giving me this audience. I think this is the first time I've come here, and let me use this opportunity to thank His Excellency the former president, and to say good morning, bro. And also one of my good friends who is in Obuasi, Alhaji Bawa Rashid. I say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi to you. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Mr. Sulemana. Yusuf Sulemana is Member of Parliament for Bole Bamboy. He also is now ranking member on the Trade Committee of Parliament. Well, stay with us, because coming up shortly, we'll still be talking about other pertinent issues. One of them being the placement system into our senior high schools. There still are many, a chunk of our junior brothers and sisters who have not got placed. What is the situation? What can we expect? All of those conversations after the show, after the break. We'll be right back. Welcome back on the AM show. There's a special ceremony we're going to have in-house. You can't see them, but I can. And it's on the back of the 14th installment of the EcoBank Joy News Habitat Fair. There were some people, almost Oyasini, they made it happen. and we're going to celebrate them by presenting to them certificates of participation. 3 groups. I'd like to say a very good morning to the representatives from the 3 groups. Thank you for joining us on the AM show.
Thank you.
You have this look on your face. How's the Reynolds Ray doing?
It's doing very well. As we speak, we're actually going out to service some customers.
Oh,
and
wow.
The uptake has been great.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I asked you, and you represent Saint-Gobain, if you like, how it's pronounced. What was the EcoBank Habitat Fair like for you this year, the experience?
I think it was a great experience. I think it's one of the best we've had so far. We had a lot of patronage, we had a lot of people coming to our stands, we got a lot of new customers, a lot of prospects. There are a lot of prospects that my team is still following up with, chasing, a lot of new people who are coming into our offices to get to know more about us. And I think the name Saint-Gobain has become a lot more popular and more synonymous with Joy News, Joy FM. So I think on the whole, it's been a very great and fantastic partnership so far.
Okay. And I guess we're saving the best for last. Fame Company. What was the experience like?
Oh, Fame. It wasn't bad. It was okay. We had people coming up to the stand. And after the fair also, we've had referrals, we've had people visiting the sites, trying to purchase and all that, and it's been good.
Okay. And of course, as you come along, there are groupings, companies that have been along with us for 6 editions, 7 editions, 10 editions. And the more you come, the more the crowd and how things work. But we value your coming along with us on this journey. Without you, we probably wouldn't be able to do it. So in celebration of all of you, they say ladies first, right? We're going to be celebrating. This is a certificate of participation at the Habitat Fair 2023, and this is presented to Fame Company for participating in the EcoBank Joy News Habitat Fair 2023. This wonderful certificate is for you. Here we go. Maybe we should. Okay. Now 1 down, 2 more to go. Maybe I should have given you a handshake, but I think we'll do some boza. And this next one is to Saint-Gobain, Ghana. It's a certificate of recognition. We greatly value coming along with us, your support and everything. And of course, the wonderful service you offer. And this is our certificate of recognition for you as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Before you go on, just to say something briefly.
Yes, please.
So just to mention that Saint-Gobain is the corporate brand.
Right.
Okay. And within Saint-Gobain, there are a lot of businesses. And the businesses we represent in Ghana, I'm sure your colleagues have tried pronouncing it. Let me just hit on it again. So it is Saint-Gobain. Okay. We have Gyproc. We have Placo. Pro-Rock. Okay. Isover. Ecophone. And many, many others.
Okay. Okay. All right. And finally, thanks for that education. To Premium Motors Limited, to you as well. You are delivering the Renault Ray, among others. We're proud of you, and we're so grateful that you joined us on this journey. Thank you very much. Okay, so with this simple ceremony done here, we want to salute all of you, together with all the others who came on board to make the EcoBank Joy News Habitat Fair possible. Of course, our partnership with EcoBank goes without saying. We celebrate you. Any final words before we go?
Yeah, definitely we'll be coming back.
Right.
You know, it's a car company. People wonder why we would want to participate in a fair that is related to real estate. But then it was very good for us. We got a lot of leads that we've worked with that we are still following up. So definitely we'll be coming back in the upcoming fairs.
All right. And that is why you ought to come along in the EcoBank Joy News Habitat Fair 2024. Don't miss out. The action is right there. Lady, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining the conversation. Once more, we salute you. We'll be back with more on the AM Show.
International Conference Center on the sidelines of the UN peacekeeping ministerial meeting. I have the rare opportunity to interact with the U.S. representative to the UN, Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Joy News channel. We're indeed grateful.
Good, thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here with you.
Ghana treated you so far? So far?
So far, so good. Ghana's hospitality has been amazing. Ghana's preparation for this event has been extraordinary. The attendance has been huge. So it's been a great experience, and having Ghana be the host of the Peacekeeping Summit, I think is a real coup for Ghana.
Well, that said, I would like us to take a look at Ghana's security situation. It's a crucial time, especially when we are going into an election year. What would be your own assessment of the security situation in Ghana, and taking into consideration what we ought to put in place ahead of the election?
Look, as we look at the region, as we look at the neighborhood that Ghana is in, Ghana is relatively stable. And as I said yesterday, Ghana is a country that delivers peace. You have been an active participant in peacekeeping. I visited a training center yesterday for training police who are going out to the field. Ghana has been a very successful member of the Security Council for the past 2 years, and really worked hard on issues of peace and security across the region, but also around the world. So Ghana, I think, is in good stead as we move forward in the coming year.
Well, but looking at the fact that Ghana sits in the middle of a recent spate of coup waves around us, amongst others, our contribution and what we can do to also fortify ourselves against such happenings around us.
Well, certainly Ghana is aware of that, and I think as Ghana looks at its own security situation, it is working to partner with other countries in the region through ECOWAS. It is partnering with us and other donors to support their efforts to improve security here in Ghana, but also to take issues of security, peace and security to other places in the world.
But our contribution, and some would say that we are not really immune to such happenings. What are we doing right? What do we have to do better going forward to ensure that we sustain that immunity?
You know, Ghana is a strong democracy. You have had a long history of transfer of power from one elected government to the next, changing from one party to another party. Your institutions are extraordinarily strong. That does not make Ghana immune from insecurity. So what that means is Ghana has to pay attention to its security just like other countries in the region. But they are partnering with us, they're partnering with others to ensure stability here.
Okay, well, speaking of Ghana, we'll get into our neighbors though, but the issue about the laws, the right laws, human rights issues coming up has been topical over the period. From where you sit, in order to prevent abuses in terms of formulation of our laws amongst others, what would you say would be the caution to Ghana in that regard? You
know, countries have to respect human rights. Ghana has a history of respecting human rights, and this is something that we hope will continue in Ghana. Ghana has just been elected to the Human Rights Council. Being on the Human Rights Council has certain responsibilities, and we hope that as a member of the Human Rights Council, Ghana will show its strong respect for human rights, for inclusion, and ensuring that all of Ghana's citizens benefit from Ghana's constitution.
In that regard, so far you would say we're on the right path, we're on course when it comes to that?
I think you're on the right path. None of us are perfect by any means. Even my own country, we're not perfect. But not being perfect does not mean you can't continue a process of making your country better, your democracy stronger, your constitution more representative, and your country more inclusive.
African countries and our preparedness in responding to issues about terrorism, for instance, cybersecurity threats, other issues about drugs, amongst others. Where are we falling short when it comes to dealing with these particular issues, you would say?
You know, I think countries have to invest more in their people. They have to invest more in education. They have to invest more in job creation and ensuring that rights are protected for their citizens. The first step toward autocracy is stepping on the rights of citizens. And so I think we have to continue to press that message that it is important. Human rights is an important element of stability.
Well, the issue about partnership with the U.S. has been long-standing. What roles you envision that the U.S. will be playing in terms of fostering these partnerships further in helping, especially in the area of security?
Well, you know, one of the themes of the summit these past 2 days is partnerships. And we are partnering with Ghana as well as other countries to build capacity, to provide equipment and support to countries that are addressing issues of terrorism, to ensure that they have the ability to respond should anything happen.
Should Ghana be worried when it comes to the issue about terrorism, you'd say?
Every one of us should be worried about terrorism. When I look back on the United States and the 9/11 attack, and I'm living in New York now, so I visited the memorial there. Almost every country was represented in the list of people who were killed. So we all have to continue to worry about terrorism, but we have to do more than worry. We have to work to prevent it.
There are some who say that with your presence in Ghana, it means that there's a lot of good news coming up in terms of partnership with Ghana and the U.S. Any such good news in the offing very soon, you would say?
You know, look, the vice president was here, so my presence is minor compared to having the vice president be in Ghana. What that has signified is that we have strong respect for Ghana. We want to partner with Ghana. We're engaging with Ghana to address a large number of issues. We have a USAID program here that is one of the largest on the continent of Africa. So the partnership is strong and growing.
Well, U.S. has done a lot for Ghana. And the question now is, what can Ghana do for the U.S. with you here? What exactly will be your expectations in terms of what Ghana can also do for the U.S.?
You know, Ghana can stay on course as a democracy. Ghana can stay on course as a strong partner. I am really extraordinarily pleased to have partnered with Ghana for the past 2 years on the Security Council. And I know that the United States looks forward to partnering with Ghana on the Human Rights Council. So that partnership is mutual. It's not just us giving to Ghana, but it is also Ghana giving to us. You know that American tourism is huge here in Ghana, particularly among African Americans, but also across the board. Ghana has welcomed American tourists. It's welcomed the diaspora community. Large numbers of Americans have moved to Ghana and are living in Ghana. And Ghana's hospitality is also part of that partnership.
And what they say, long should that partnership live. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to interact with you. We're indeed grateful.
Thank you very much.
That's Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield. We're grateful for your time. And we're hoping that you'll be back in Ghana soon, so we give you some more treat in terms of our hospitality.
This is my third trip to Ghana since I started this job, and I certainly look forward to returning.
It's beyond the return in December, so I'm sure you have a good time in Ghana. Thank you so much. Thank you. Live from the Accra International Conference Center, this is the Joy News channel, and we have a rare opportunity to interact with the Under-Secretary General in charge of peacekeeping, Jean-Pierre Lacroix. He's our guest. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Joy News channel.
Very good to be with you.
How has Ghana been for you so far, you'd say?
So far, so good. We've had an excellent welcome and a wonderful organization. So very, very pleased to be here.
Okay, well, we'll get straight into action. I would want to find out from where you sit, how do you think Ghana has fared in terms of our peacekeeping operations over the period, in terms of what we've contributed amongst others, you'd say?
Ghana is one of the most important supporter. It's a very important troop and police contributing country to peacekeeping. We have approximately 2,700 men and women from Ghana serving in most of the peacekeeping operation that we have, and their service is outstanding, and therefore it's very fitting that we're having the first ministerial level meeting on peacekeeping in Africa in Ghana.
Well, let's talk about collaborations going forward, how the UN is hoping to collaborate more with the local communities, amongst others. Where are we with that, and where would you want to be going forward?
I think it's very important to make sure that we engage, and our peacekeepers, the civilian, the military and the police engage very closely with the local communities for one very simple reason. First of all, in crisis settings, they are by definition the most affected component, the men and women and children from the local communities. They're the ones who bear the brunt of the crisis. But in addition to that, you cannot build sustainable peace without engaging with the local community. That's why our peacekeepers are making tremendous efforts to make sure that the communities are on board and they're supportive and understanding of all the efforts that our peacekeepers are making.
It brings me to the issue about hurdles and challenges that the UN faces as we speak. From where you sit, what would it be and what we are hoping to do differently, you'd say?
I think of course, before talking about the challenges, it's very important to talk about the achievements of our peacekeepers, because if it weren't for them, then ceasefires wouldn't be monitored, the resumption of hostilities would not be prevented, and we should not forget that every single day our peacekeepers, including the peacekeepers from Ghana, are protecting the lives of hundreds of millions of civilians. But we have challenges. The first one is a political challenge, because we have an international community that is much more divided than it was 10 or 20 years ago. But we're also facing challenges because of the fact that conflicts have changed and the threats are becoming even more daunting to our peacekeepers. Armed groups, new technologies, fake news and disinformation. We need to adapt to all these threats.
Okay, it takes me to the issue about gender inclusivity, because most of the time I am female, so I'm excited to talk about that. Let's talk about the initiatives to enhance more gender inclusivity when it comes to UN peacekeeping.
I think the first thing that needs to be said is Ghana is very much a pioneer in terms of having more women in peacekeeping, including more women at senior ranks in the military and the police. That is very important. And in my interaction with the Minister of Defense, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I encourage Ghana to continue this effort and also to come up with more female candidates for senior position. When we have more women in peacekeeping, we have a more effective peacekeeping. That's the motto, really. But the role of peacekeeping is not only to increase the number of women in the military, the police, the civilian. It is also to do more to empower women in the countries where peacekeeping operations are deployed, to make sure that women will have a voice in political efforts and peace efforts.
Well, the issue about sexual exploitation, and I must add that there's a woman behind you, so it actually talks about the issue about gender inclusivity. But let's talk about the issue about sexual abuses and exploitation when it comes to UN peacekeeping. I'm sure there are some measures in place to curb that, amongst others. You'd like to touch a bit more on that?
Indeed. I mean, what needs to be said is sexual exploitation, abuse by peacekeepers is intolerable. It's only a very small minority, and by doing these unspeakable things, then they cast a stain, they undermine the work of the great majority of our peacekeepers. So we've taken a number of measures And I believe that we're more equipped to prevent and react to cases of sexual exploitation and abuse. We've been taking very robust measures when we are faced with such cases, including repatriating entire contingents and taking other measures so that victims can be better supported. That is very important.
I know how pressed you are, but the issue lastly about partnerships with local communities, the issue about these stakeholders and the organizations, how they complement the work of the UN peacekeeping, you'd say?
Yeah, peacekeeping is about partnership. Peacekeeping is there to support progress towards peace, towards sustainable and durable political solution. But we need partners to do that, because the peacekeepers cannot do everything by themselves. First of all, we need to partner with member states, and we need stronger political support from them to political efforts. But we work also with humanitarian agencies, with NGOs, with, of course, the civil society, with regional, sub-regional organizations such as the African Union and ECOWAS. And it's only with the strong partnership that we can succeed. The partnership is absolutely key to the success of peacekeeping.
And finally, maybe the success stories. Of course, we can't talk to you without talking about the success stories of your mission, for instance. What would you say will be the success stories, and going forward, certain programs that we're hoping to initiate?
Well, I think the list is very long, first of all, of success stories of countries that have been, that have returned to stability, political stability, with the help of peacekeeping. It ranges from Liberia, Sierra Leone, Côte d'Ivoire, Angola, Mozambique, Namibia, and other countries in other continents, Timor-Leste, Cambodia, and I could go on and on and on.
Yeah.
Today it's more difficult to achieve this, this what I call the ultimate success, because our member states are more divided and we have less support for political efforts. But we should not forget the success that are achieved every single day. Again, preserving ceasefire, protecting the lives of hundreds of millions of hundreds of thousands of civilians, probably millions of them. That is very important, and these are achievements that should absolutely be highlighted.
We are grateful indeed for your time. We thank you so much for making time to be with us on the Joy News channel. I don't know if you've tried any Ghanaian food so far.
I did, absolutely.
Which one did you try?
Even on the ground, actually. I remember this very spicy but delicious soup that I was served in Abia, actually, where I visited your contingent there. So indeed, I mean, that's another thing.
We call it pepper soup, I'm sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jean-Pierre Lacroix. Thank you for joining us here on the Joy News channel. Another time, we'll get to have that rare opportunity again. That's it for this special edition. We're grateful. I am MF Apau.
Welcome back on the AM show. We love to hear from you, which is why at this point in time, we're activating the phone lines. We've had a lot of discussions on the show today, especially on the LI in Parliament, among others. Just call the number at the bottom of your screen. Let's have a conversation. We're going to pick about 2 calls only. So if you want to express your thoughts or your sentiments, you might want to pick up the phone and call now before you're beat into it. But interesting discussions we had with the Member of Parliament for Bole Bamboy, Yusuf Sulemana, who is also now the ranking member on the Trade Committee of Parliament. He joined us in the studio to have a conversation on that LI being put forward by the Trade Minister, Kobina Tahiru Hammond, together with other issues like the reshuffling that has gone on in terms of the committees of Parliament, and also flag bearership, or should I say the running mate issues in the MPP and the NDC. If there's also something in your community you would like to share with us, now is the time. You call that number 0302 211 691. 0302 211 691. We'd love to hear from you. So share your thoughts with us this morning on the show. We're waiting. Time is ticking. And in a bit, I'll have to wrap up and introduce Joy News Desk. So it is in your court. Let me just, before we get any calls, celebrate all of you who are celebrating your birthdays today. I've not got any specific request for today, but if today happens to be your birthday, the 7th day of December, which means it's on your birthday that we go to the polls, well, happy birthday to you, wherever you find yourself. So those are the numbers, or that is the number at the bottom of your screen, 0302-211-691. If you're minded to do so in about a minute, if we don't hear from anybody, then it's going to be a wrap of the show. Let me also let you know about the University of Professional Studies, Accra, which presents the 2023 Annual Leadership Lecture on the topic, Reimagining Ghana's Development Trajectory for a Peaceful and Prosperous Nation by 2057, our 100th anniversary. Through the perspective of the people, Mr. Kwame Pianim, we all know him, the renowned economist and statesman, is going to be the special guest, the special speaker. And this year's UPSA Annual Leadership Lecture starts at 9:30 a.m. on Monday, December the 11th, 2023, at the Kofi Ohene Kunedu Auditorium on the UPSA campus. So come, let's engage minds to build Ghana. We are the change Ghana needs. To participate, just contact events@upsamail.edu.gh. That is events@upsamail.edu.gh for further information. Well, as there is no call today, I guess all of you are on leave in terms of picking up your phones and sharing your thoughts. We're going to sew it up here as we await Joy News Desk coming your way shortly. It's been a pleasure coming your way. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. Look forward to my blunt thoughts for tomorrow. It's going to be, well, you know how we do it. We're going to drop bombs. Not literally, figuratively. Have a wonderful day. God bless.